So what I wanted to do is kind of elaborate on what Fab was talking about, and I guess use a little bit of our own personal experience from the Teeling Whiskey Company. So Teeling Whiskey was established in 2012, but the family have been distilling in Ireland since the 1980s. So a little bit of heritage of provenance and history, but I guess looking at it from the perspective of a newcomer to the category. So I want to create a whiskey. We talked about world whiskey, and we talked about this geographically unique category that's growing worldwide with different countries creating different whiskeys with different regulations and rules. We're only just scratching the surface on the future of whiskey. But when it comes to Irish whiskey, and I'll talk a little bit about it, there's a big category there. It's one of the fastest growing spirits categories in the world right now, but right now it's a bit of a dominated category. So I wanted to kind of focus on positioning more than anything. So how we went about positioning. So first and foremost, like Fab said, it is that very, very interested, much less brand loyal whiskey consumer. And a lot of them are coming to Irish whiskey for two reasons. One, the provenance and history and stories. Hundreds of years of provenance in Irish whiskey. When we think of whiskey, a lot of the time we're thinking of that. We're thinking of this romantic category where imbibing something that was laid down before we even existed. This idea that it comes from a generational experience. So that provenance, that history, Irish whiskey obviously has in spades. But we also fit into this new world of whiskey as well. This modern, looser classification around what can be whiskey from Ireland. So playing in both of these realms has been phenomenally successful for Irish whiskey, and that's firmly where Teeling see themselves. Specifically the US, like the prospect in the US is absolutely phenomenal. We were talking about this, Teresa, there. But yeah, premiumization of Irish whiskey in the United States is absolutely insane. Like, look at some of these stats, over 600% growth. Be that as it may, the best stat I can think of off the top of my head is Irish whiskey's projected to overtake Scotch sales in the United States by 2030. That's insane, considering that at one point in history, 40% of whiskey once came from Ireland. In the economic downturn, the first kind of golden era of Irish whiskey disappeared. That 40% just went straight to Scotland. And now Irish whiskey is slowly clawing that back over the last 10 years. To see the potential of Irish whiskey in the biggest market in the world is insane. But today's world, people still look at all Irish whiskey as one green brand. And that's our job as craft whiskey producers, to move away from that and showcase the length and breadth of Irish whiskey. Irish single malts, Irish pot stills, Irish grain whiskies. Not like Slag and Jameson at all. Like, huge respect to one of the biggest brands in the world. Not whiskey brands, one of the biggest brands in the world. They've done phenomenally successful things. But I guess what the issue was is a lot of people in Ireland stopped trying to innovate and started to copy the success that Jameson had. So that's where we found ourselves about 10, 15 years ago. So for us, it was about differentiation and finding that unique space in this fast-growing category. Next up, we have our brand ethos. So authenticity, conviction, progress, and community. These have been significant for us because they reinforce our values. We can't just say we're a brand. What do? We sell whiskey. Why? We like to get people drunk. It doesn't really work. So our authenticity speaks to not only the whiskey and the character of the liquid, but also the character of our producers and our brand creators. And the conviction behind that is the proof. How do you prove that you are authentic in what you do and say? How do you progress the industry forward and innovate and move within that and work with fellow people within your industry, the community side of things, really? You know, the social sustainability side of things. How do you work with local partners to, again, progress not only the industry, the category, but your environment? For us, it's Dublin. And Dublin, we're creating Dublin whiskey, but it's also redeveloping the area in which we call home. The Dublin Liberties area, working with our partners around us in collaboration. So all of these things kind of, again, reinforce those values in which we put toward ourselves. Positioning. So we're getting to the end here. So when it comes to price positioning, So going back again, historically, hi lads, going back again, looking at some of these brands down the bottom, like I said, the Irish whiskey categories was more similar than it was different. A lot of these brands were copying the success that Jameson had had. But I guess the problem was, though, is that some of these people are coming to Irish whiskey through Tullamore Dew, Bushmills, Jameson, Powers, Paddy, but then graduating to Scotch or bourbon because tastes evolve. And they were, getting that $20, $30 bottle and then moving up. And there was historically nothing within that premium white space. So that was key for Teeling moving forward, because there was such a leap to your likes of Redbreast, Green Spot, and Middleton in years gone by, that everyone was just not going that through. They weren't graduating through the price brackets. They were going elsewhere and out of Irish whiskey. So filling that premium white space was super integral for us. And people start with Jameson and then find their way to Teeling through these other brands. The packaging. So again, you can start to see all these things tie into our brand ethos, our brand identity. So again, like I said, you can't have if you're going for that premium white space, you can't have a plastic bottle with a cheap screw top. It's incongruous with the presentation of your brand, the brand story, and all the things that make up who you are. So the traditional bottle, so that is a dark green bottle. So it isn't a link to the past. It looks black, but it's a link back to the glass production methods in Irish whiskey all the way back in the 1800s. We didn't have coloured glass. So if you do hold the bottle up to the light, it's a dark green bottle. It's not the brilliant light green that looks fantastic, but it's more traditional. The modern labelling, trying to strike out. So less family crests and stereotypical Irishness, and a little bit more modern whiskey. We like to say we're a modern whiskey that just happens to be from Ireland, as opposed to being defined by Irish whiskey. The premium cues, the cork seal, the embossing, shrimp wrap, all these things play into why you're paying that little bit more per bottle. It's hard to pay extra if it feel and taste and appear just similar to everything else on the market. So you have to put in these extra steps. The striking Phoenix, we need that striking logo that remains memorable. Again, people try it at BCB. They try a million different brands. They walk home and go, what was that one that I had that I really, really enjoyed? How was it memorable? How was it striking? Oh, yeah, it's got the bird on the bottle. Or in our case, a phoenix rising from the ashes of an Irish pot still. And then just finally, to reinforce some of what I've said, to hopefully sinking home some of our achievements so far. Like I said, this was a story. I don't pretend to be brilliant at what I am. This is just the team in which I surround myself. We've been quite lucky as a brand and very fortunate to be at BCB for the last 7 years and have a lot of successes. But it goes without saying, we're one of the most leading progressive Irish whiskies in the world, with over 600 awards for our whiskies, winning world's best in 3 different categories, which is really important. And we're very proud to be able to say, because no whiskey company can say they've won world's best in 3 different categories. We're the only Irish whiskey to ever win world's best single malt, and then add to that world's best single grain and world's best pot still. It hopefully reinforces that we're doing something right by the innovation and the focus on this premium white space. We're exporting to over 80 markets internationally now, which is very, very exciting. I literally just came back from India, where there's a huge opportunity for modern whiskey today, with a dedicated whiskey consumer and so large a population. It is very, very exciting to see such an opportunity for Irish whiskey there. But not only Irish whiskey in India, but Nigeria as well. We've had phenomenal success in Nigeria and hugely didn't expect that at all, and really, really interesting to see. So 80 markets now have allowed us to gain interest and investment from one of the biggest family-owned rum companies in the world, in Bacardi, to allow us to grow to that next level. Because it needs to be said, and this is something that's kind of important to me, is that the achievements and everything that we've just gone through in 80 markets for an international whiskey company with 600 awards are achieved by a staff of 20 people internationally. So that relationship with Bacardi is hugely important to us, because we've been stretched so thin as a brand for so many years, and we've put in so much blood, sweat, and tears into this brand. So to see these achievements, it was always going to be a part of the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join us at the stand for a frozen Irish coffee and an Irish whiskey. Thanks very much for joining us. Hang around for the next presentation. And yeah, thanks, guys.